بسم الله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. Today we're going to be continuing with the poem of Abu Ishaq al-Ilbiri. We got up to 24. We finished 23, line 23, we're done line 24. So he said, وإن ألقاك فهمك في مهاو فليتك ثم ليتك ما فهمت. So he said, if your understanding leads you to destruction, okay, then he says, I wish you never understood, and I wish you never understood. So it's when people misunderstand the religion and that misguides them, like people who think hijab is only, the way you act, and it doesn't have much to do with the clothing that you're wearing. Or people claim that you can be, for example, you can be LGBT or gay, or you can be Muslim, and they misinterpret the ayats which talk about Lut alayhi salam and the events that took place in that city, or within that city of Sodom. So people's misunderstanding can misguide people, and it would be better off if they didn't understand. Really, there's certain things, if it misguides them, it's better they didn't understand, because they understood wrong. Then he said, ستجني من ثمار العجز جهلا وتصغر في العيون إذا كبرت. One second. So he said, he says that you will pick up weak fruits from ignorance. So when a person, like a farmer, when he plants fruits and vegetables, he wants to pick up, he wants to have the best produce. So he's saying, from the produce of ignorance and the consequences of ignorance are something which is unfruitful and not beneficial. So he says, وَتَصْغُرُ فِي الْعُيُونِ إِذَا كَبِرْتَ. One of them is you become smaller in the eyes of people when you become old. So you'll find many people who have reached an old age, or they're past the age where they're going to madrasa or studying, the alphabets, and they still don't know, for example, the alphabets, or they don't know the basics. So that means, in the eyes of people, for example, if they have children, the children are going to think, oh, my dad doesn't know how to read, or someone else might think, oh, how come he doesn't know how to read Fatiha properly? So the question is, when that person was young, why did he not learn? And that's the consequences of ignorance. So the person becomes older, but in terms of respect for him, it becomes less, because he's been neglectful. That's if someone doesn't have learning difficulties. وتفقد إن جهلت وأنت باق وتوجد إن علمت ولو فقدت. He said that you will be, if you're ignorant and you're present in a gathering, you will be as good as someone who's absent. And a person who's absent but who has knowledge will have more presence than you, which means, for example, when people have a meeting or there's a gathering and a person with knowledge is quoted, they say he said this and he said that, and he's quoted more, and his words are quoted more than the people who are already there. So there's people who come to the gathering, they have nothing to say, nothing to contribute, because they don't have knowledge. So these people who passed away a long time ago, some of them, have more presence in reality than the people who are there, because of their mentioning. So what the difference between that is knowledge. وَتَذْكُرُ قَوْلَتِي لَكَ بَعْدَ حِينٍ إِذَا حَقًّا بِهَا يَوْمًا عَمِلْتَ. And then he said, you remember my words, and you will basically appreciate them if you act upon them one day. وَإِنْ أَهْمَلْتَهَا وَنَبَذْتَ نُصْحًا وَمِلْتَ إِلَى حُطَامٍ قَدْ جَمَعْتَ. And then he said, if you disregard my advice and you just throw it away, and then you put your focus on the dunya and what you've collected, okay, then he said, فَسَوْفَ تَعَضُّ مِن نَدْمٍ عَلَيْهَا وَمَا تُغْنِي النَّدَامَةُ إِن نَدِمْتَ. He said, you will regret and you will bite your fingers out of regret. And being regretful won't benefit you at that time. Especially as he goes on into the next part, the next line he says, إِذَا أَبْصَرْتَ صَحْبَكَ فِي سَمَاءٍ قَدْ ارْتَفَعُوا عَلَيْكَ وَقَدْ سَفُلْتَ. If you find that your colleagues, your friends, your peers, they have reached the skies, which means they've reached a high place in life in terms of their knowledge, they've become scholars, qari, fuqaha, or they've become people who benefited your society because of obviously this knowledge, and you've become low, قَدْ ارْتَفَعُوا عَلَيْكَ, they've gone high above you and you become even lower in society. So he said that's when you'll regret. Okay, so at the beginning people are the same, but as time goes by, the fruits of this knowledge comes out. فراجعها وضع عنك الهوينا فما بالبطء تدرك ما طلبت. He said, so take yourself to account, and you are not going to reach your goal by procrastinating or being lazy because you can't reach a goal or that goal by being slow and just delaying things. Are you guys with me? Yeah, okay. He said, وَلَا تَخْتَلْ بِمَالِكَ وَلْهَ عَنْهُ فَلَيْسَ الْمَالُ إِلَّا مَا عَلِمْتَ. He said, don't get distracted by your money, and don't make this your main concern, or searching for money or trying to make money. He said, فَلَيْسَ الْمَالُ إِلَّا مَا عَلِمْتَ. Your real worth is what you know. And that's true even if it comes to business, because billionaires or people who've made money, it's because of certain traits and characteristics and what they know about the business that allows them to make this money, the choices they make. So in reality, he's telling us now as well, when you compare dunya and deen, so he said your value, okay, is what you know, Islamic, and how you act upon it. وَلَيْسَ لِجَاهِلٍ فِي النَّاسِ مُغْنٍ وَلَوْ مُلْكُ الْعِرَاقِ لَهُ تَأَتَّى. So even if the ignorant person, so the ignorant person won't benefit people, will have nothing to give them, even if he owns all of Iraq. So Iraq at that time, and throughout history, it's been the center for civilization, and it's known for its rivers and gardens. So he's saying if the person is rich and he owns land like similar to Iraq, still he won't be able to benefit people because he's ignorant. So rich, ignorant people are not going to benefit the society. سينطق عنك علمك في ملأ ويكتب عنك يوما إن كتمت. And he said, your knowledge will one day will speak about you. What he means is that one day every time you mention Allah in a gathering, Allah will mention you in a better gathering. Okay? Or it means that people will talk about you in a gathering, mentioning you because of your knowledge. But if you hide this knowledge, then this will also be written. So it will be written in the record of the human being, the person, if he hides knowledge from the people. وَيُكْتَبُ عَنْكَ يَوْمًا إِن كَتَمْتَ. Like Banu Israel, who hid many signs or the information about the new prophet, and people who've changed. So it'll be changed, the texts. They are hiding knowledge. So that's what's meant here. وَمَا يُغْنِيكَ تَشْيِيدُ الْمَبَانِي إِذَا بِالْجَهْلِ نَفْسَكَ قَدْ هَدَمْتَ. He said, having skyscrapers and buildings and a lot of real estate is not going to benefit you if you're demolishing yourself with ignorance. So there's no point looking outside and seeing what you have when inside you have completely destroyed yourself with ignorance. جعلت المال فوق العلم جهلا لعمرك في القضية ما عدلت. So he said, you've made knowledge, you've preferred money over knowledge, and that's ignorance, and you haven't been just in your judgment. So remember here, he's not only talking about knowledge because Islamic knowledge is what you also practice. وبينهما بنص الوحي بون ستعلمه إذا طه قرأت. He said, and between them is a great difference between knowledge, Islamic knowledge, and wealth. And you will know this if you read Surah Al-Taha. So what does it say in Surah Al-Taha? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam to ask for more knowledge. وَقُلْ رَبِّ زِدْنِي عِلْمًا. And it doesn't say anywhere else in the Quran, ask for more wealth or something similar to that, but he's told to ask for more knowledge. That's the only thing he's told to ask for more of. لَإِنْ رَفَعَ الْغَنِيُّ لِوَاءَ مَالٍ لَأَنْتَ لِوَاءَ عِلْمِكَ قَدْ رَفَعْتَهُ. He said, if the rich person has lifted the flag, his flag of wealth, then you've lifted the flag of knowledge. So you are supporting knowledge. لَإِنْ جَلَسَ الْغَنِيُّ عَلَى الْحَشَايَا لَأَنْتَ عَلَى الْكَوَاكِبِ قَدْ جَلَسْتَ. If this rich person sits on furnitures, reclining on expensive furnitures and sofas and sitting in palaces, then he said you're sitting on the stars, which means you are as high as the stars when you compare yourself to him, because Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam also did say فضل العالم على العابد كفضل القمر على سائر الكواكب. The difference between the person who has knowledge and the worshipper is like the moon and the other stars. So the person who has knowledge is compared to the moon, and in comparison to the one who's a worshipper. So the one who's only got money, then he doesn't even reach those stars. وَإِنْ رَكِبَ الْجِيَادُ مُسَوَّمَاتٍ لَأَنْتَ مَنَاهِجَ التَّقْوَى رَكِبْتَ. He said, if he's riding these expensive horses that have signs to show that they're expensive, flashing their beauty, then you are riding the manhaj of Allah. Okay, the manhaj of taqwa and fair. So in our time, it will be if he's riding Porsches and Ferraris, then you have something more important that is getting you somewhere. That is taking him, if he's not appreciating it, to hellfire. And this manhaj of taqwa and fearing Allah is carrying you to Jannah. And then he said, وَمَهَمَا افْتَضَضْتَ أَبْكَارَ الْغَوَانِ فَكَمْ بِكْرٍ مِنَ الْحِكَمِ قَدْ افْتَضَضْتَ. من الحكم افتضت. So he said here, like how many like people boast about women that they have and how many women they've slept with and all of that. And then he said, how much knowledge have you benefited? So he compares even knowledge, like the wisdom from that knowledge, to marrying a lot of women. So some people, they get distracted by women and that's all they think about. And he's saying you have something more beneficial than that. You have wisdom. وَلَيْسَ يَضُرُّكَ الْإِقْتَارُ شَيْئًا إِذَا مَا أَنْتَ رَبَّكَ قَدْ عَرَفْتَ. He said, poverty will never harm you if you know your Lord. So the opposite the opposite understanding would be, if you are rich and you don't know your Lord, then being rich will never help you. فَمَاذَا عِنْدَهُ لَكَ مِنْ جَمِيلٍ إِذَا بِفَنَاءِ طَاعَتِهِ أَنَخْتَ. So if I go back on the previous point, now some people say, oh, if I spend some time learning, I could be working, I could be making money. So if the person's learning more about Allah, then if he's losing out on some of his wages, then he's actually rich in the sight of Allah, because he's getting more of the inheritance of the prophets. فَمَاذَا عِنْدَهُ لَكَ مِنْ جَمِيلٍ إِذَا بِفَنَاءِ طَاعَتِهِ أَنَخْتَ. He said, what beautiful and good things does Allah has prepared for you, which is in Jannah, if you come to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's courtyard in obedience. So when he says courtyard, he's comparing it to how people, they used to visit the palaces of rich people or princes or kings, and then they would tie their camels and then they would walk into the palace. So he's saying you're coming into the courtyard of Allah, so as if you're begging Allah. So you will be begging Allah. فَقَابِلْ بِالْقُبُولِ لِنُصْحِ قَوْلِي فَإِنْ أَعْرَضْتَ عَنْهُ فَقَدْ خَسِرْتَ. He said, so take my advice and accept it. If you turn away, you would lose. You would have lost. You guys can still hear me, yeah?
Yeah.
Good. وَإِنْ رَاعَيْتَهُ قَوْلًا وَفِعْلًا وَتَاجَرْتَ الْإِلَهَ به ربحت. He said, if you look after and guard, what I've just told you in terms of action and speech, and you act upon it, then you are doing business with Allah. So, tijaratan lan tabur. Allah said that people who are obviously doing these good deeds, they're doing business with Allah, a business they will never lose. So, if you're giving your time and your effort and your strength for to learn this knowledge, you're doing business with Allah. فليست هذه الدنيا بشيء تسوءك حقبة وتصر وقتا. He said, this world is nothing. It makes you sad for so long. So حقبة, the way he get the word he gets, the word is used in the Quran, أحقابا, which means for a long time. So he says the world or this life makes you sad for so long, and it makes you happy sometimes. So that's the reality of life. People die, relatives die, people become poor, people get sick, people fail. So the time that you're actually enjoying the world, because it's not a place of enjoyment in reality, because people get old and we're just weak human beings. So there will be a lot more times where you're vulnerable and you'll be sad, and there will be only a few times. If a person looks back his time, there will be short times when he's been very happy. So that's the reality of this world. He said, وَغَايَتُهَا إِذَا فَكَّرْتَ فِيهَا كَفَيْئِكَ أَوْ كَحُلْمِكَ إِذْ حَلَمْتَ. He said, the reality, the highest that you can compare this world to, it's just like a shadow that is going past, like the shadow at dhuhr time that goes past, or during the day. So that's quick. Or a dream. It's like a dream when you wake up. So people who are rich and billionaires and they're not remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this world is so short, it's like a dream compared to the next life. سجنت بها وأنت لها محب فكيف تحب ما فيه سجنت. He said, this world is like a prison for you, and you're imprisoned in it. So how could you love something that is a prison for you? So he's referring to the hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said, الدنيا سجن المؤمن وجنة الكافر, that this world is a prison for the believer and a paradise for the non-believer. So if the reality of this world is that it's a prison, how could you fall in love with something that is your prison? وتطعم الطعام وعن قريب ستطعم منك ما فيها طعمت. He said, this world, you eat from the ground, you eat from its fruits and vegetations, and soon it will be eating from you. So your body will be consumed by, your flesh will be eaten by the ground, be taken in by the ground. So that's the reality. وتعرى إن لبست بها ثيابا وتكسى إن ملابسها خلعت. He said, in reality, the people who are wearing clothes, the clothes of this dunya, are naked, and the people who have taken it off are clothed. So what he means, the people who have attachment to this world and just love it and chase it, in reality they will never be satisfied. And the people who kind of turn away from this world, the world will be chasing them, and it will be basically so he's comparing the love of this world to clothing. وتشهد كل يوم دفن خل كأنك لا تراد لما شهدت. He said, every day you witness a burial or someone close to you dying, but you act like nothing has happened. So he talks about how people don't take heed from he's talking about how people don't wake up from being heedless and being far away from Allah. Although they bury their relatives, they bury close friends, and they just walk away as if nothing's happened. They go back to their life. وَلَمْ تُخْلَقْ لِتَعْمُرُهَا وَلَكِنْ لِتَعْبُرُهَا فَجِدْ لِمَا خُلِقْتَ. He said, you were not created to live in this world forever, basically. You were created to pass it like a transit, and focus on what you were created for. So what he's saying here is, this life is temporary. وَمَا الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا مَتَاعُ الْغُرُورِ. So this life is temporary, and it's just that we're just going past. We came into this world, our souls are blown into the bodies, and then we were born, we stayed in this world. Let's say a person would stay 60, 70, 80, let's even say 100 years, but then he leaves, and then he's got another journey ahead of him, which is millions and trillions and no end to that journey. So he's saying, you just came past this world, You're not going to stay here forever. So then focus on where you're heading to, where you're going to, which is the next life. وَإِن هُدِمَتْ, I'm just going to add just till the end of the page. وَإِن هُدِمَتْ فَزِدْهَا أَنْتَ هَدْمًا وَحَصِّنْ أَمْرَ دِينِكَ مَا اسْتَطَعْتَ. He said, if this world is becoming destroyed, then you increase its destruction and look after your deen. So what he means here is, if there's someone who, for example, I'll give you an example. If someone is told you can't pray salah at work, and they're told if you pray salah you're going to be fired. So in that case, the person should say, okay, I quit before you even fire me, because my salah is more important. So that's what he means. Don't worry about, don't destroy the world. Which means, if it means you're gonna choose between your dunya and your akhirah, this is how you have to act. وَلَا تَحْزَنْ عَلَى مَا فَاتَ مِنْهَا إِذَا مَا أَنْتَ فِي أُخْرَاكَ فُزْتَ. He said, don't feel sad about what you lose, or what you miss out in the dunya, if you become successful in your akhirah. فَلَيْسَ بِنَافِعٍ مَا نِلْتَ مِنْهَا مِنَ الْفَانِ إِذَا بِالْبَاقِ حُرِمْتَ. He said, anything you benefit from this world, okay, and it means that you compromise on your deen and you lose out and it becomes something you don't get in the next life, which is the one that's going to remain, then it's not worth it. So it's not beneficial, it's not worth it, choosing this dunya over the akhirah, if it means you're going to lose out your akhirah. And so he's trying to compare the two, because we know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا الْآخِرَةُ خَيْرُ وَأَبْقَى, that the akhirah is better and it's more lasting. وَلَا تَضْحَكْ مَعَ السُّفَهَاءِ يَوْمًا فَإِنَّكَ سَوْفَ تَبْكِي إِن ضَحِكْتَ. He said, don't laugh even a day with the foolish people, which means it's talking about companions. Don't make your companions people who are ignorant, foolish in the sense of their understanding of the next life and the akhirah. So people who don't care about the akhirah, who don't care about their religious well-being, they don't have any consequences, no limits. These are foolish people, because he said, فَإِنَّكَ سَوْفَ تَبْكِي إِن ضَحِكْتَ. If you laugh with these people, there will be a day you will be crying, which will be the day a person will say, يَا لَيْتَنِي اتَّخَذْتُ مَعَ الرَّسُولِ سَبِيلًا يَا وَيْلَتَى لَيْتَنِي لَمْ أَتَّخِذْ فُلَانًا خَلِيلًا. When a person would say, I wish I never took so and so as my friend. I wish I took Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam as my role model, and that friend misguided me. So you should have good friends and companions and people who will help you achieve your akhirah, good in your akhirah, and help you to become a better person. So I'll stop there, inshallah, for this lesson. Jazakallah khairan.